Hello everyone and welcome to Season 5, Episode 44 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches in NXT history with match number 7 on our list, which is the NXT title match between the champion Adrian Neville and the challenger Sami Zayn from the NXT TakeOver R Evolution event held on December the 11th of 2014. We have officially entered the portion of this list where really the ranking of, the final 7 matches could be a pick'em. I think that they rank head and shoulders above all of the other matches on this countdown. I think that they are some of the best, for my money at least, the best professional wrestling matches of all time. And there's one constant theme that's going to run through all of them, and that is just pure emotion that, they're able to draw from the viewer, at least that, they were for me, during the story that they present throughout them. This match is absolutely incredible. It's one of my favorite matches of all time. I couldn't rank it as the best match, which, says a lot about the other matches that are still to come on this countdown. But it is absolutely tremendous, and it represents, a really kind of special night for me as a wrestling fan, viewing this show live when it happened. This was the match that everybody wanted to see. These guys have a history. They had a match in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla in 2006, which at that point was one of the best Spot Fest matches ever, and really put, Neville or PAC on the map. Prior to that, even they'd had some encounters in Europe as well that really got them familiarized with each other, but it was that PWG match that, really put the world on notice. So, with both of these guys being in NXT, it seemed inevitable that they would eventually clash. They had a match at the start. It was either the end of 2013 or the start of 2014 that was really good. It was a glimpse of, what they're capable of. And then throughout 2014, during Neville's reign as the NXT champion, we would get these little teases of these guys squaring off. And I talked about this in the main event from NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way, where, we got this just brief moment of them clashing. And you knew it was a slow build, a slow burn to this, match. It felt inevitable. And finally, we got it here. And, maybe this isn't the match that on paper, you might have wanted out of these two. It's not, similar to the complete balls to the wall, spot fest that the PWG match was or some of their other matches were. But it's really just this compelling story. And don't get me wrong, they put some spectacular maneuvers in this. But it's really all about just that pure emotion. Neville had been kind of going down a little bit of a darker path leading this match, very much a tweener, having not really done anything that's fully broken the rules, but it's kind of bent those rules a little bit in desperate attempt to, maintain his status as the NXT champion. And they established that very early on in this match, and the crowd here is so good. This is where I really feel like Full Sail University started to take NXT to another level, just with the response to these matches. And again, this was an early takeover, but this is where they really started to feel special. So the crowd is just completely behind Sami Zayn here, which just makes it all the better. And Neville really responds well to that in the early goings on of the match, where he has this chip on his shoulder. And during the intros, he's kind of taunting Sami Zayn with the belt. Again, nothing really too bad. It's not like he's attacking him at the bell or anything, but, showing that I'm the champion. When, they do this opening kind of mat exchange, and he kind of gets in Sami's face a little bit after winning, and they do another one, and, Sami kind of gets the advantage on that exchange, but, Neville does this really cocky, resorte out of an arm drag attempt that Sami goes for, and then he proceeds to kind of start doing his flipping and flopping, basically showing, okay, you might have got me on the mat a little bit, but I'm such a better athlete than you. I'm such a better premier high flyer. But then he makes a mistake and he gets caught in a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. And then Sami, shows him that he can fly just as well and hits a gorgeous Arabian press onto him. And I love that too, because, the tilt-a-whirl backbreaker, the Quebradora, it's such a classic kind of lucha, cutoff spot, right? That Rudos would always use on Technicos. But it's a move that in NXT, Sami Zayn's fell victim to so many times against Cesaro, right? We've talked about that in their matches on the countdown. So I love that he kind of pulled that out of his bag of tricks, to use against Neville. Neville really slows the pace down here in the early going, and it works so well because, he's this high flyer. So it's really interesting, and it becomes really compelling that the high flyer is the one that's trying to slow the match down. And the commentary, to their credit, I don't think Corey Graves is great, but he does a really good job here because he talks about taking the crowd out of the match, because the crowd is so solidly behind Sami that, by slowing the match down and not allowing them to rally him, it's kind of, the equivalent to when a road team does really well, against a home team in any sport. I'll compare it to basketball because that's the sport I like. But, when it kind of deflates, it's really hard for the home team to get energized and keep it going again. And that's what he does here. He slows it down with that chin lock, but again, to the crowd's credit, they try their best to rally Sami, and they give him the old El Generico Olay chance to try to get him going, and eventually, Neville can't sustain, and Sami comes back, with some great offense. He gets his great lariats. Neville pops off a Rana to avoid a dive attempt, but then when he goes for his own, he's kind of backdropped over the ropes, and Sami gets the big tope con hilo and hits a great crossbody for 2. They have this spot that these two guys do where Neville does a cartwheel up onto the shoulders of Sami and generally spins around and turns it into like a snap Rana. So they do that here, but then, Sami has it scouted, kind of throws Neville off and counters it into the Blue Thunder powerbomb instead for another great near fall for 2. They're just the fluidity that these two guys have with all of their movements and the snap that they have on their offense. It gives this extra oomph that just makes everything so much better. So there's a point when, Generico goes for the run-up tornado DDT that he would do, and Neville counters that into a Liger bomb. But as he's coming down with the sit-out powerbomb, he gets his legs up over the arms of Sami, so he just snaps it down, and that's, very Jushin Thunder Liger-esque, right? That's why we call that move a Liger bomb, because that's his style. But so many guys don't do these little things like that, these guys just make sure they do. They put that extra mustard on everything. Sami gets another lariat at one point, turns Neville completely inside out. We talk so much about Sami's great lariats, but he misses the haluva kick. This gives Neville an opportunity to go up for the red arrow, but he gets hit with the knees. Sami grabs the Koji clutch, which, is one of his finishing maneuvers he'd been using, but Neville's able to get the rope. So again, this kind of, teasing of all of the big, finishing offense from these guys. Then we kind of get into, I'll call it the overbooked portion of the match, but when I say something like overbooking, you get that perception that it drags a match down and it ruins it. We talk so much about, New Japan now, how, with Evil and Bullet Club and all of those, guys, how their matches get dragged down by all of this constant interference and shenanigans. But that stuff can work when used appropriately and used sparingly, and when used to help enhance the match. And that's exactly what they do here. So Sami goes for the exploder suplex in the corner. Neville counters that to a roll-up. But when Sami kicks out, Neville kind of gets bumped into the referee a little bit. So as, Sami Zayn kind of realizes that he's trying to help the referee up, and he gets blasted with a super kick and a reverse Hurricane Rana for 2. And then, Neville tries to capitalize on, basically the referee's discomfort. And, this referee's kind of been the piece that's been stringing this story together. And at Fatal 4-Way, it was, Neville pulling the referee out of the ring, not hurting him or doing anything like that, but, stopping that count when Sami looked to have the title, in his grasp. So here, we see that Neville has that compassion for the referee who's been hurt, but at this point, Neville has that, Sami has that compassion for the ref, but Neville doesn't, and he tries to capitalize on it and take advantage. Sami is able to duck a kick and hit these rolling German suplexes, with the last one being, the half and half suplex, again, very El Generico-esque. Neville bails on a haluva kick, and Sami goes and hits the thread the needle DDT. Back in the ring, looks to have the match finished. He's going to hit the haluva kick in the corner again. And what does Neville do? He pulls the referee into his path. This completes, I'm not going to call it the heel turn, but this completes that story and that point where, Neville had used these little shortcuts well within the rules, but here, he went overboard. He put the referee in danger to try to save his title at this point. There was no excuses. No way that you could read it as, a happy accident. He pulled that referee in the way. So while the referee is bumped here, we get, Neville at this point, trying to use whatever tactic he can, and he goes out to the ring for the title belt, the NXT title, and he brings it in, and he gets hit with a Yakuza kick from Sami, and we just get this wonderful finish that's so good, and it's this great little bow on this story where Sami picks up the title belt, and the NXT title that he wants so badly, and he gets ready to nail Neville with it, right? To give Neville basically what he deserves at this point, and win the title. And the crowd again is so good here. They're chanting, no, 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 like the Daniel Bryan style. Commentary's doing a really great job talking about the conflict that Sami's facing. And then finally, Sami Zayn, he has so much respect for the title. He has so much respect for the fans and NXT and his opponent and the official that he decides he can't do it. He can't bring himself to stoop to Neville's level, and win that belt through nefarious means. So he goes to put the belt back at ringside, and as he's doing that, Neville schoolboys him up for just such a good 2 count, because it completely makes sense if Neville was going to retain that would be the finish. Sami kicks out though. Neville comes in for a charge. Sami gets the corner exploder this time and just lines up perfectly. The anticipation builds to this fever pitch, to this beautiful peak, and Sami Zayn will not let anything deny him at this point, and he finally hits that haluva kick, nails it perfectly. It's enough to get him the 3 count. It's enough to win him the NXT title. The crowd is so good. Sami's so good selling the victory. When I watch this match live, I've been an independent wrestling fan, at this point for 22, 23, 24 years. And, being from Canada as well, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, those are kind of my guys, right? They're my IWS guys that, I watched from their infancy in the independents. So to see him climb the top of the mountain when really, he's a guy that I personally didn't really expect to make it to the WWE, just the El Generico gimmick and the style that he wrestled. But I watched this guy literally come up from, working early IWS and getting reviewed on a website at the time called thesmartmarks.com. There was a wrestling reviewer called Shooter J, who just trashed him and called him, a backyarder and everything like that. And it made the IWS fan base so angry that they would chant, F Shooter J during a lot of his early matches. But to watch that guy go from, this skinny little guy that would write in magic marker, Olay on his chest and wear a bootleg, octagon mask because he didn't have his own, to eventually at the pinnacle. And yes, it's NXT, but he's made it to the main roster as well and held the Intercontinental Championship and everything there too, don't get me wrong. But to kind of